It was just another Sunday night in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, until the sound of gunfire tore through the Burger King on North 51st Boulevard. Inside, 16-year-old Emma Harris lay motionless on the floor behind the counter. Her mother, Patricia, a single parent who worked 2 jobs to keep their family afloat, was on her way to pick her up from the late shift. Instead, she would arrive to find police tape, flashing lights, and a nightmare she could never wake up from. But here's what makes this story even more heartbreaking. The bullet that killed Emma didn't come from the robber's gun. It came from someone she trusted, someone she worked alongside every single night, someone who thought he was protecting her. What went wrong in those 7 seconds? And why did a 16-year-old girl have to pay the price for a decision she never made? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Emma Harris wasn't just another teenager flipping burgers. She was a sophomore at North Division High School taking advanced placement classes and dreaming of becoming a veterinarian. She took the job at Burger King 6 months earlier, not for spending money, but to help her mother pay the bills. Patricia worked as a nursing assistant during the day and cleaned office buildings at night. Emma saw the stress lines deepening on her mother's face and decided she wanted to do something about it. To her coworkers, Emma was the sunshine of the night shift. She picked up extra hours when others called in sick. She remembered everyone's birthdays. She made the long, grueling closing shifts bearable with her infectious laugh. She trusted the people she worked with. She believed they were like family. That trust would be the very thing that led to her death. Derek Morrison was 34 years old and had worked at that Burger King for almost 2 years. He was quiet, reliable, but what his co-workers didn't know was that Derek had a criminal record for armed robbery and was legally prohibited from owning a firearm. What management didn't know was that Derek had started bringing a gun to work, keeping it in his backpack. He told himself it was for protection. The store manager, Sharon, later admitted she knew Derek carried the gun, but never reported it to corporate or police. She convinced herself it was harmless, that he would never actually use it. On January 2nd, 2022, all those small choices, all those moments of looking the other way, would culminate in 7 seconds of chaos that no one could take back. The night started like any other Sunday evening shift. Emma clocked in at 5 p.m. and took her position at the front counter. Around 9:47 p.m., as they were preparing to close, a black Chevy Impala pulled up to the drive-thru. The man inside ordered a Whopper meal, his voice calm and casual. Emma confirmed the order and told him to pull around to the window. What happened next would be captured on surveillance cameras from multiple angles. When the Chevy pulled up to the window, Emma slid it open with her usual smile, ready to take payment. Instead of cash or a credit card, she found herself staring down the barrel of a gun. The man in the car, later identified as 28-year-old Marcus Johnson, demanded money. He reached through the window, grabbing at Emma's shirt, trying to pull her closer. Emma screamed. The sound echoed through the restaurant, a high-pitched shriek of pure terror. Derek, who was in the kitchen, heard that scream, and his body moved before his mind could catch up. He ran to his backpack, pulled out his gun, and sprinted toward the drive-thru window. He didn't call 911. He didn't alert Sharon. He didn't think about Emma standing directly between him and the robber. Derek fired multiple times. The sound was deafening. Shell casings bounced off the tile floor. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, and Emma crumpled to the ground. She'd been hit 3 times in the chest. Derek had been aiming at the robber, but in his panic, in his adrenaline-fueled rush to be a hero, his shots went wild. Emma never had a chance to move. 1 second she was standing there, terrified, but alive. The next second she was dying on the cold tile floor, her blood spreading out around her. The robber's car peeled out of the drive-thru and disappeared into the night. Inside, Emma's co-workers were screaming, some frozen in shock and others running toward her trying to help, but there was too much blood. Sharon dialed 911, her voice high and panicked. Derek stood there staring at what he'd done, then did something that would make everything worse. He got down on his hands and knees and started collecting shell casings from the floor, moving methodically, putting them in his pocket. Then he went to Sharon and told her he needed her to hide the gun. He said he was a felon, that being caught with a weapon meant decades in prison. Sharon, overwhelmed and in shock, took the gun and locked it in her office safe. Paramedics arrived at 9:53 p.m., just 6 minutes after the call. They rushed in and began working on Emma, but they knew the situation was dire. She'd been shot 3 times in the chest, one bullet puncturing her lung, another nicking her heart. They loaded her onto a stretcher and rushed her to Fruitert Hospital. Patricia was already on her way to pick up her daughter when she saw police cars and an ambulance screaming past. When she turned onto North 51st Boulevard and saw the police tape and flashing lights outside Emma's workplace, her heart stopped. She parked in the middle of the street and ran toward the building. An officer stopped her, told her there'd been a shooting, told her Emma had been taken to the hospital. Patricia didn't remember driving there or running through the emergency room doors. The next thing she clearly remembered was standing in a consultation room with a doctor whose face was gray with exhaustion. The doctor told Patricia they'd done everything they could, given Emma 6 units of blood, tried to repair the damage to her heart and lungs, but the injuries were too severe. Emma Harris was pronounced dead at 11:17 p.m. on January 2, 2022, less than 2 hours after being shot. Patricia's scream when she heard those words echoed through the entire emergency room. Nurses later said they'd never heard anything like it. It was the sound of a mother's world ending. As police investigated, disturbing details emerged. The robbery hadn't been entirely random. Marcus Johnson had been in contact with 2 Burger King employees in the days before the shooting. Emma's best friend Nicole and Nicole's father Carl Edwards, who worked maintenance at the restaurant. The 3 had allegedly planned to stage a robbery during closing when the registers had the most cash. Carl would angle security cameras away from key areas. Nicole would cooperate and hand over money, and they'd split the proceeds. No one would get hurt because everyone involved would know it was staged, except no one told Emma, and no one told Derek. When Nicole was arrested and interrogated, she broke down immediately. She said her father convinced her it was just borrowing money from a corporation that had plenty to spare. She never thought anyone would get hurt, never imagined Derek would have a gun, never dreamed her best friend would end up dead. This raised horrifying questions. Did Emma die because of a staged robbery gone wrong? Would she still be alive if her best friend had simply told her what was happening? Derek was charged with second-degree reckless homicide and possessing a firearm as a felon. Marcus Johnson faced felony murder charges because under Wisconsin law, if someone dies during commission of a felony, even if you didn't pull the trigger, you can be charged with murder. Sharon was arrested for obstruction of justice for hiding the gun. The trials took nearly a year. Marcus Johnson was convicted of felony murder, armed robbery, and endangering safety. He received 35 years in prison. During sentencing, Johnson said he was sorry, that he never meant for anyone to die. Patricia, sitting in the courtroom, stared at him with empty eyes. His apology meant nothing because it didn't bring Emma back. Nicole and her father both pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Nicole received 5 years probation. Carl received 3 years in prison. Derek Morrison's trial divided the community. Some saw him as a reckless wannabe hero. Others saw him as a man who made a tragic mistake under extreme pressure. The prosecution showed how Derek fired without properly assessing the situation, how Emma was directly in his line of fire, how he could have called 911 instead. Derek took the stand and cried as he described hearing Emma scream, seeing the robber's gun, making the split-second decision to act. He said if he could take it back, he'd give anything to undo what he'd done. The jury found him guilty. The judge sentenced Derek to 15 years for homicide and 5 years for the weapons charge. 20 years total. During sentencing, Patricia stood at the podium and read a victim impact statement that left the courtroom in tears. She talked about Emma's dreams of becoming a veterinarian, about her son asking when his sister was coming back, about the crushing weight of grief. Then she looked directly at Derek and said, "I don't hate you. I'm too tired to hate you. But you didn't just take my daughter's life. You took my future. You took everything. And the worst part is, you thought you were helping her. But Emma didn't need a hero with a gun. She needed someone to call 911. She needed a system that didn't fail her over and over again. 3 years have passed since Emma died. Patricia still visits Emma's grave every Sunday, bringing fresh flowers and sitting on the grass beside the headstone, talking to her daughter about everything and nothing. Sometimes she brings Emma's favorite meal, a Whopper with extra pickles and a vanilla milkshake, and leaves it by the grave. She knows Emma can't eat it, but it makes her feel close to her daughter. Derek Morrison is serving his sentence and has become an advocate for gun control and workplace safety within the prison system. He's given interviews about his regret, about how he replays that night constantly. Marcus Johnson has kept to himself in prison. Nicole changed her name and moved out of state, trying to build a new life away from the memories. Wisconsin passed a new law requiring panic buttons at drive-through windows. Major chains updated policies explicitly banning weapons on premises. But laws can't bring Emma back. This story isn't just about a workplace shooting, it's about cascading failures that led to a preventable death. A manager who knew an employee had a gun but didn't report it. A worker who brought a weapon thinking he was prepared for danger but only created more. A best friend who made a terrible choice and never imagined it would cost her friend's life. Emma should be in college now, studying veterinary medicine, figuring out who she wants to become. Instead, she's in a cemetery, her story a cautionary tale. So what would you have done if you were Derek? If you heard someone screaming, saw them in danger, would you have called 911 and waited, or tried to intervene and risked making everything worse? If you were Sharon, would you have reported the gun even if it meant getting an employee fired? These aren't easy questions, but Emma's death forces us to confront them. Patricia wants people to remember Emma not as a victim or statistic, but as a bright, funny, compassionate girl who loved animals and her family. She wants managers to report weapons in the workplace. She wants employees to call 911 instead of playing hero. She wants teenagers to know their lives are precious. If this story moved you, hit the like button. Subscribe for more true stories every week. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Derek should have received a longer sentence? Do you think justice was truly served? We want to hear your thoughts.